Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch podcast brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Go to Underdog Fantasy right now. Deposit up to $100 for a 100% deposit bonus using promo code ROSTER. Go there and help us out. It helps us out greatly. They've been a great sponsor for us. And I know my guest has been doing a whole lot of underdog drafts, during the free time that he does have. He's been a favorite, a repeat guest here on the podcast. His name is Derek Brown. You can find him on Twitter at dbro_FFB. He is now at FantasyPros. He's made it to the big time. Derek, what the hell's going on, brother?
Alex, it's always a blast to sit here and be able to chop it up with you, man. Yeah, some things have changed. Some stuff is a little bit different, but the game is the same, my friend. So anytime we're able to talk football, it's going to be a damn good day in these streets.
Yeah, man. So I wanted to throw it back to you just so you can let people know what it is that you guys are working on. I know at Fantasy Pro, we all have the stuff we want to get out there to the people. I know you at Fantasy Pros, you guys have the redraft kit coming out this month, but you already have the best ball kit up. What's going on over there? What should people be looking for as far as your content?
Yeah, I mean, look, all my rankings are live, and that's, whether it's going through Dynasty, Redraft, Best Ball, all these different formats. We have player notes that are currently in there for the top 200 players and overall ADP in these formats and stuff, so go check those out, as well as you talked about the Redraft kit. That thing goes live in June. We're going to be covering strategy, player profiles, all kinds of stuff. Basically, players that I'm saying, okay, go get them, avoid them. Here's my perfect draft if everything goes right, which we know it never does, but perfect scenarios. Those things are live, as well as the best ball draft kit. So, I mean, you talked about Underdog. If you're in the Underdog streets, you're at FFPC, all these different spots, go check it out. You want to win some money? Who doesn't enjoy like a good best ball draft when you're sitting on the can for about 20 minutes and you're just like, okay, and hey, I might win some money by this $5 I just put into the puppy. I mean, it's just good times, buddy.
Sitting on the can for 20 minutes, probably in the best for your health.
hey, look, I might have undershot the time depending on people and honestly living dad life, and you're just like, I need a break.
Sometimes you just got to get in there. Yeah,
sure. Man. You're just like, nope. They go, no, I'm in here. And then they knock on the door, and you're like, or you just try to pretend like it didn't happen. I didn't hear that. So either way, man, it's a good time to knock out a best ball draft. Well, you're just sitting there pondering life.
Man, living this dad life. I got the kids, but I'm on summer daddy daycare, so it's like
same.
If you guys hear the kids running around, man, me and Derek have the same issues going on. Hopefully they'll give us a few minutes free here. Just quickly, also before we get started, I just wanted to thank all the listeners. I've noticed our podcast numbers continue to grow, man. I'm amazed by everybody out there, and just my one ask would be, if you guys could leave a rating and a review. I don't ever ask for that, but they've been telling me that I need to start asking for that. So please leave a rating and review wherever it is that you listen. It's super easy to do, and people are bugging me to push that. So and also if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and like the video. Okay, with all that being said, I got a ton I got to get to with you here, Derek. And the first thing that came to my mind was this whole thing. I know you live on Twitter. Where are you on the whole Treylon Burks thing? Are you worried about the issues that people are talking about with his conditioning? There were some issues with how it's like the OTA stuff. It's so back and forth, because one minute you see, a bomb from Ryan Tannehill to Treylon Burks, and he jumps up and he's wearing that number 16 and he goes up and gets it, and he looks just like, wow, what if we see this on every NFL Sunday? This is going to be incredible. And then you hear he's failing conditioning tests, or he's a little bit behind as far as the rest of this stuff. I mean, are you worried? Is it cockamamie OTA hype? Like, where are you on Treylon Burks?
Come on, Alex. I mean, at this time of the year, we're over analyzing the fact that the man had an asthma attack at practice. Like, come on. I get it. Like, we need things on social media to talk about, but this ain't it. And like, at this time of the off season, people are worried about Najee Harris being over 4 pounds heavier than he apparently was last year. And I love Najee chirping back and being like, what are y'all talking about, man? So with the Treylon Burks stuff, It's early. It's early. If we got into training camp and we're like getting closer and closer to the season and you still hear some of these things kind of coming out of camp, then maybe we press the panic button slightly. But at this point of the offseason, no, I'm not worried about it. I don't think it's going to push. It shouldn't be pushing down his ADP. Probably does, because that's what we get, and you get to enjoy the dip on some of these news items and stuff. But am I panicking? No, not at this stage.
Well, I have noticed that he's going late. It used to be when you were in these underdog drafts, it would be Drake London and Treylon Burks would peel. It was like once the rookie sort of seal was broken with the wide receivers, both those guys would peel off quick. Somebody would take one, and then the other would go, and you couldn't bet on which one it was going to be first, right? But they would always go close to one another. It feels like lately Drake London's been going a good bit ahead of Treylon Burks in most of the tests that I've been doing for the best ball cheat sheet, and it feels like he might be falling a little bit because of this stuff. Now, my question to you is, with the other OTA news where we saw all the videos of Robert Woods and how good he kind of looks, it looks like he's pretty healthy based on the way that he can cut and run. These guys are 30 spots apart in ADP. Robert Woods has done it at the NFL level before. He's going to a kind of a team that has an old school staff, an old school mentality. You know, Vrabel's the kind of guy that'll go out there and tell you to eat rocks and, you know, knuckle drag and do whatever else. Like, do you think that maybe they lean on a veteran like Robert Woods a little bit more than maybe some people were expecting? Just because, you know, whenever the draft occurred, we're like, oh, Treylon, they traded away A.J. Brown. They used the pick to get Treylon. They've talked to me. I mean, my comp during the whole thing before I knew any of this was A.J. Brown for Treylon Burks. Like, so we had all this excitement for Treylon Burks, but Robert Woods is going 30 spots later. I'm beginning to think that those ADPs might, you know, they should be creeping a little bit closer. But I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, whether or not that offense can even sustain two outside weapons.
I don't know that they're going to have enough passing volume to sustain the guy, like two different guys, to be, I mean, extremely fantasy viable. And the concerns that I have about Robert Woods, one, I think the ADP gap is warranted in the sense that, like, Robert Woods, I think he's going to be a much better NFL player than he is fantasy player at this juncture, in the sense that even before last year and tearing his ACL, even if we discount Alex, like, the number dip and the efficiency dip we see a lot of times with players in their first year off of an ACL. Now you're talking about, like, he's 30 years old. We don't usually see rebounds and efficiency from players. And this is a guy like with Robert Woods, since even before this, like 2021, he had a small dip. But prior to that, I mean, walking into last year, that's one of the reasons why I was so massive into Cooper Kupp, because Robert Woods had seen his yards per route run decline in each of the 4 previous seasons. So now, not only did we see the decline before last year, but now he's dealing with the ACL. Maybe he has an efficiency dip coming off of the ACL. You have a run-first offense. I think Robert Woods is going to be good for the Titans and what he provides for their offense, but in fantasy purposes, I think the gap in the ADP is warranted, and if I got to pick one of the guys, it's still Treylon for me, because I think he has the youth, he has the talent, he has the upside. And yeah, like you're talking about, if we continue to get some of these narratives coming out of camp about, okay, well, Treylon's not doing this, or Woods looks good and Treylon's this, then we could see that flip. I'm more likely to just buy in a little bit further and buy more of the dip of Treylon Burks.
Do you think that as far as whenever we look at these rookies, right? So Treylon Burks, you worry about Robert Woods. What are you doing about Chris Olave? I think you liked Olave coming in just based on your Twitter. I was was huge Chris Olave guy, but this Jarvis Landry stuff in New Orleans bothers me a little bit for this reason. It's because with Chris Olave, he's one of the best route runners that I've seen as far as coming out of school. And whenever you look at what Jarvis Landry can do, he can do a lot of the underneath stuff. He can, he's another guy who can really just get open at will. With Olave, I thought it was so interesting because he's not only able to do that, but he can burn you over the top. He's a really multifaceted guy. And when you take all that and put it all together, I thought to myself, wow, I mean, this guy could be a do-everything weapon. Now I worry about some of the volume that could be bitten off by Jarvis Landry, at least in that form. Do you vibe with any of that? I mean, like, how much does Jarvis Landry, is that a big or a small problem for Chris Olave?
So I think there's a few things here, Alex. Like I think that Landry is a small problem. I think the bigger cog here is Michael Thomas and what happens with him. I think that Landry is a small problem in the sense of, okay, what happen if Michael Thomas is healthy? It's hard to envision Chris Olave fully breaking out this year. If Michael Thomas is not healthy, I could still see the path because when I was actually surprised when I went and looked up Jarvis Landry and how he did, not just in raw metrics, but like advanced metrics last year. It surprised the hell out of me just how much juice that Landry still has left in the tank, man.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he last year he actually had a better yards per route run than Keenan Allen and Mike Evans on a per route basis. He was more effective than both of them after the catch. He was 21st in yards after catch per reception. And so putting him in that type of stratosphere, and he was top 30 in yards per route run, the guy still has enough left in the tank to draw targets. If Michael Thomas is out, I think he can compete, if not be the number one target in this offense. And if Michael Thomas is playing, again, I think that he is the number two target. Now, maybe Olave has some spike weeks, but as far as him getting consistent enough volume to have a full-fledged breakout season, it's going to be hard if Michael Thomas is healthy. So I think, yeah, you're adding Jarvis Landry to this continuum of targets. If it was just Michael Thomas and Chris Olave, I'd be like, look, like he's going to break out. He's going to be the number two target. Like he's really competing with Alvin Kamara. And we hadn't even talked about Kamara, but I think it's really, really hard to envision a scenario where Chris Olave fully breaks out if Michael Thomas is healthy and with Jarvis Landry on the field. As much as I like Olave, and I like him from a lot of different perspectives, the speed, he doesn't offer a ton after the catch, but look, he's getting open, and that's what we care about because that's what's going to draw targets, and he has the speed to also take the top off of defense. So I think that he could be used in a lot of different ways in that offense, but it's hard to envision a full breakout if everybody is healthy in this offense.
I think he does. I think he's good after catch. It's just people rely so much on that forced missed tackle stuff from PFF. Yeah. And I get it, but it's like he's oftentimes so wide open deep down the field. It's like he doesn't need to break any tackles. So yeah, it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other with that stuff. What about? So we don't know about Michael Thomas. Just hey, what about Michael Thomas for you? Like, I mean, he's been hurt for so long. I mean,
yeah.
He's going around the time the guys like, Courtland Sutton.
That's crazy.
Stuff like this. But I've seen it. If you do enough of these drafts, you see people reaching a little bit for Michael Thomas. He'll go in that kind of Rashad Bateman, he like Darnell Mooney, Gabe Davis. But he goes in those spots, right? He goes in those spots. So not always. I think his ADP is a little bit lower than those guys. But you'll see people reach up. And I've just wondered, like, do you see a bull case that would even allow you to reach to those spots? And for the Gabe Davis, Darnell Mooney, let's not even say the Sutton Judy area. Let's just say like the Mooney kind of Gabe Davis. Rashad Bateman's been moving up a little bit, but he used to be in that area. Like, do you see a bull case for Michael Thomas to where even if he was healthy, that you would take him there? Like how does that all work in your mind when you're putting together rankings or you're on the clock there sort of in that spot?
So I moved Michael Thomas down in my rankings over the last week or two, and a lot of this comes down to we just don't know, Alex. Like a lot of we haven't heard any positive reports where it's like, oh man, look at him. Like we got one video of him running and he looks slow as hell. And I know speed has never been a massive part of his game, but I mean he looked like Isaiah Likely out there, like running a freaking 4.9, man. Like it was rough. And so looking at Michael Thomas, I'm not willing to sit here and take him over any of those wide receivers that you mentioned previously. Like give me Bateman, give me Gabe Davis, give me Mooney over Michael Thomas. And for a lot of different reasons. So if he is going to be reached for in best ball formats and things like that, I'm not going to have much Michael Thomas. Now, if I can get him somewhere in the wide receiver 3 range, which I think I have him ranked as like a higher end wide receiver 3 right now, just because we don't fully know. And without having full certainty, I can't drop him lower, but I can't push him higher. I did have him a little bit higher about a week or two ago, and I've since dropped him a little bit, just looking at situations for these other wide receivers. And we want upside, we want talent, and we see a lot of the breakouts for these guys happen in these second and third seasons, I'm more willing to buy into the breakouts for those type of players than I am to see like Michael Thomas coming back, because it's been a long time, Alex. Like you mentioned it, man. Like it's been a long time since
it's like the
seen
Titanic meme. It's like the Titanic meme where it's like it's been 84 years. Like like the old lady out there. It feels like it's been 84 years since we've seen anything out of Saquon Barkley, but it really hasn't. It feels like I've been higher on Barkley, through this whole process. I like what they've done with the coaching staff. I like what they've done to improve the offensive line. I think if this is going to be a year where they get a little bit more out of Daniel Jones, that could mean a lot for Saquon Barkley. But I understand that that's kind of a beginning to become a narrative that's picking up some steam. I know you're not always with the conventional narratives. So are you in on Saquon?
Oh, I'm massively in on Saquon. I think that there's so many different things. And I mean, if we want to go from the top down approach, like the dude's in a contract year, like, and I don't want to say like that's full. I mean, I know I'm going full narrative street here, but like he wants to get paid. Everybody wants to get paid. Like, get your bag, young man. Like, let's go. Like Saquon Barkley in a contract year, as well as you talked about the additions they've made on this offensive line. Alex, they're quietly really damn good. Like if you look at John Feliciano, he's coming off a down season. But if you go back to 2020, not that long ago, he's the 13th best zone run blocking guard in the NFL. Well, he was actually 9th best in zone, 13th best in run blocking overall, and they added Mark Gloniski from Indy, who was the 18th best zone guard last season.
Yeah.
And they're talking about they're going to get back to they're going to get away from this gap power bullshit that they tried to do with Judge and Garrett. Get Saquon back doing what he does behind an offensive line that's shown, like, in metrics, they're good at running zone. We hear narratives that they're going to get back to running zones. Saquon smashes and has the vision and the burst to do that. All we need is a healthy Saquon Barkley, and the parts or pieces are there for him to crush this year. Like, the offensive line wasn't doing anything to help him last year, and there's only so much you can do when I think Saquon wasn't healthy at all last year. He played through stuff, and the offensive system, the offensive line were terrible. So yeah, it's wheels up for Saquon. If I'm getting him in the third round, fourth round of drafts sometimes, sign me up for that. If that keeps happening, I'm going to have a massive amount of Saquon Barkley.
But it is happening right now. That's why you should go to Underdog. Use that promo code roster. It's not like, because you can get him third round right now. I'm consistently doing it. Mm-hmm. Can it stay like that? Is it going to stay like that once we get into the real redraft stuff?
I think so. I think he's still going to fall to the third round in a lot of spots, especially on Underdog, because on that site specifically, we all like wide receivers. People really like wide receivers drafting on Underdog. Mm. And you could still do some of these different builds. Like we talk about, like going with an anchor running back, things like that. But you could do them and flip it on its head and saying, okay, well, if Saquon stays healthy, he can be my anchor. Or I can go wide receiver, go Saquon, and flip the narrative and the construct around and still accomplish these same type of things. And so, yeah, I mean, look, I think that there's an easy way where you could only fit so many players inside the top 24, Alex. So, yeah, I think he's going to still be in the third round for a lot of draft season, because people will form narratives and still consistently draft and say, looking down the draft board and say, well, I mean, there's other guys I like outside of Saquon Barkley. I mean, like at least 24 of them. So I think he's going to stay in the third round for a lot of the draft season, if not all of it.
What about Zeke? Because Zeke now is falling to the fifth round. And it's like, his ADP, I believe, is only 41 or 42 right now when I was doing a draft earlier today. But he fell to the fifth round. I've seen him falling to the fifth round. I've had to move him down on our cheat sheets just because, like you said, there's this wide receiver thirst to where people, before we get to the spots where people start taking guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Cam Akers, David Montgomery, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, Josh Jacobs, or Elijah Mitchell, any of these guys, people are loading up on the Jalen Waddles and the Marquise Browns and the Deontay Johnsons. And they're like, people are taking guys like, Brandon Cooks and, DK Metcalf without a quarterback, and like all these guys before they take sort of those running backs that are in that tier. Is that just an underdog thing? Once we get to redraft season in earnest, when we're playing in our home leagues and our office leagues, I can't imagine Zeke's going to fall this far. But in the context of what we're talking about right now, where are you on Zeke? When does he become a value as far as these early redraft and these early best ball leagues?
I think when you get into redraft season, like when we get into casual leagues and stuff like that, I think that you're going to see. I don't think he's going to fall to the 5th. I think you could probably see Zeke comfortably maybe the 3rd or the 4th. I think a lot of people are down on Zeke. His ADP on Underdog is not that different than where I have him ranked. Like he's RB20, he's 43rd overall, and Underdog he's RB16 and 41. So I mean, I'm kind of with consensus. Like if he's going to continue to fall, if he falls into like the 4th or 5th round of drafts, yeah, I mean I'll take Zeke. I have no problem with that. Like. And I've got questions about Zeke, and yes, do I like a lot of other players over Zeke? Like, would I draft like Travis Etienne over him? Yes. Would I draft some other wide receivers over him? Possibly. So this really comes down to like a lot of different best ball drafts that I'm doing. If I've gone wide receiver heavy early, then I'll swing back around and I'll pick up Zeke. But I think you are going to see some fluctuation depending on what leagues you're in, whether it's Underdog or not. I think he's going to fall further on Underdog than he is probably in your home leagues. But he goes to the 5th. Yeah, I'll grab Zeke and I'll just take the value, because we get to training camp, Alex, and we see like, okay, Zeke looks like he has something resembling a six-pack, maybe not a full one. We see a few healthy runs out of him, and you're going to see the ADP probably creep up just because that's what happens.
Yeah, and also I also just think that you have to think about the I'm trying to think of what it is, like the atmosphere or like the ethos, whatever you like, the group of people that the context of the group of people you're drafting with. And it feels like on Underdog, a lot of times you're drafting with the real snooty fantasy hipsters who think Tony Pollard's better than Zeke, and you know what I mean. And they have these takes about it. They just don't like Zeke. They don't want anything to do with them. You know, so I think that's probably something to keep in mind there. But certainly it feels odd, especially with everything coming out about how he was more hurt last year than people thought, and everything like that. All right, I wanted to ask you about some players that have seen the big ADP rises over the last week, but before there's just a couple more of these guys I wanted to ask you about. Let me ask you, this is kind of a strange question, but I was thinking about trading for Kareem Hunt in some of my dynasty leagues when his value is still kind of low, because I've heard these rumors that he could be a trade candidate. The fact they're not getting into any substantive contract extensions talks with him. I still believe that Kareem Hunt is a really good NFL running back, and I think if he were to be traded somewhere that was running back hungry, that could be a real boon. Is it way too cocky maybe to think about the idea of trading for Kareem Hunt right now on the low in dynasty?
Kareem Hunt's not a guy that I like. Even if he goes to a place in dynasty, like for me, it's probably
What if he went to Atlanta? What if he went to Atlanta?
If he went to Atlanta, I'd be more interested than maybe some spots, because then you're looking at he's going to play running back. They're going to move probably Patterson around the formation. Maybe plays a lot more wide receiver. That's one of the few spots. But outside of Atlanta, Alex, like how many places can we say, like off the top of our heads, like offer Kareem Hunt like a 3-down work role?
I would think maybe. It would suck for Dameon Pierce, who I love, but maybe. Yeah,
Houston. I love Dameon.
Maybe Houston.
Yeah, Houston.
I don't know.
The problem with Kareem Hunt is that he's going into his age 27 season. Like from a dynasty perspective, he's going into age 27, and if he gets moved, I don't see a team it's probably like a stopgap option. So he's going into his age 27 season. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2023. So you're talking about like a 28-year-old Kareem Hunt. Is he going to get another contract? Does he wash out of the league? Like, what does that look like? So in dynasty, I'm probably I'm staying away. Unless I can get him on the cheap, or he goes to some place like in Atlanta and we think okay, he's just going to go into a 3-down workhorse role, because it's hard to envision with a lot of these teams, him entering that type of workload. And then from a dynasty perspective, it's age and it's contract. issues to where I'm like, I'm probably better staying away, because there are still a lot of people out there that are like, look, like the Kareem Hunt truthers of the world that like are like, oh, look, I love Kareem Hunt. Like,
yeah,
no matter
the
what.
guys like me sitting around dreaming up these cockamamie scenarios. I'm like, Derek, I'm just trying to have you give me the okay to go trade for the dynasty.
I wish I could give you the go ahead, man. I really do, but my Damian Pierce truth or heart will not allow this right now.
Well, all right, we could be Damian Pierce truthers together.
Yes.
All right, and then the one last thing. Which Green Bay Packer are you into right now? Like with Devontae Adams going, somebody's got to pick up the slack. I mean, to you, does this elevate one of the wide receivers? Are you into Christian Watson? Are you into Alan Lazard? Are you into maybe Aaron Jones stepping up? AJ Dillon, Tunyon, all the above? Like, any of those guys really stick out to you as beneficiaries of no Devontae Adams, or just maybe a Green Bay Packer who you're into?
So I think that we see the market moving to, I think Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, their ADPs are not going to go down. They're not moving. And I think they're both relatively high. Like, if both of those guys stay healthy, a lot of people point to the splits for Aaron Jones with Devontae Adams out of the picture. And I'm not saying that they're wrong, because there's obviously credence to that. But for me, I'm going to sit here and flip-flop back and forth based off of what the market is doing on Allen Lazard and Christian Watson. I think that both of them are going outside the top 36 wide receivers right now. Lazard is creeping up a little bit, and if he's going to creep up, then I'll just draft some more Christian Watson. If we see the pendulum switch the other way, then I'll draft some more Allen Lazard. I think both, if I'm narrowing it down, those are the two guys. One of them is going to see the massive bump. And if you look at Allen Lazard's numbers, they don't jump out to you like off the page as being like, oh, I need to draft him. No. But if you look deeper on it, like Aaron Rodgers loves to pepper the short intermediate parts of the field. He's been 13th, 8th, and 13th in passing attempts between 0 to 9 yards of the line of scrimmage of the last 3 seasons. Now, marrying this with Allen Lazard, he's been crazy efficient. Over the last 3 years, he's literally been 1st, 7th, and he was top 20 or 25th in the other year in yards per route run in that short part of the field. So I love Allen Lazard this year. I liked him a lot more, but whenever people weren't, I guess, more wise to it and pushing him up the board. So really right now, it's Lazard if I can get the discount in probably a lot of your redraft leagues, less casual formats. But right now on Underdog, I think Allen Lazard, the script has been flipped. I think Allen Lazard is going higher than Christian Watson. People are tired of the hype and all this kind of stuff, and they poke holes in him because he came from a small school and all this other kind of stuff. It's like, okay, the hype was deserved, first of all. I mean, dude, we were down in Senior Bowl. We saw Christian Watson sit here just roasting dudes in one-on-ones, and for everybody that's like, well,
Even
I mean, everybody... Yeah, I mean, like, and everybody's like, well, yeah, anybody can roast people on one-on-ones. Excuse me, Romeo Dubs would like a word, sir, because he was getting blocked up. And speaking of Packers, he was getting blocked up at the line, and they're literally stopping drills because he couldn't separate. So I will push back on that. Well, anybody can separate in one-on-ones. Yeah. Watson was crushing dudes, and he was getting open at will. So for me, the easy answer is Allen Lazard. The more nuanced answer for everybody on drafting on Underdog and stuff is I'm going to take the guy that goes a little bit later. So if Allen Lazard is creeping up boards, give me more Watson. If we see that flip again, give me more Lazard.
And then the one thing you mentioned, and that I've heard people talk about, is the splits, the Aaron Jones splits without Devontae Adams. But I've heard, and I wish I could remember who, I can't take credit for this idea, but I've heard somebody say it. I can't remember who tweeted about it. I wish I could. I'd like to give him credit, but because it's a good take. They said, whenever you look at those splits from before, we have to think about, okay, that was a game level decision made by the coaching staff. Like the coaching staffs get into the season, they get into the games, they don't have Devontae Adams. They say, well, how are we going to get through this game? Let's figure out how we're going to get through this game. It's a lot different to know you have a whole season ahead of you and taking a season long, taking the longest view in the room and saying, how am I going to get through this season? How am I going to employ these guys to get through this season? So I'm
with you. Like, I think it's more noise than it is like signal. And part of what you're talking about. And the other thing is, like, we can't just lump, like, and I'm not saying people are taking all of Devontae Adams' target share and just shooting it over to Aaron Jones. But can we also say that, like, look, A.J. Dillon showed us he's a better pass catcher than we thought, like, or at least I thought coming out of Boston College, because we just didn't see it. He's a better pass catcher than we thought. Can he take some of that Devontae Adams target share? Also, can we just see the target shares for a lot of these guys get diluted out? Like, Robert Tonyan comes back, you have Lazard, you have Watson. Could this be the way that people are forecasting possibly, like, the Kansas City passing attack getting spread out to a bunch of people? Could that just not happen in Green Bay and we don't see Aaron Jones get, like, this DeAndre Swift, like, 18% target share? I lean more that Rodgers says, all right, you know what? We're just going to spread the ball out. Or one of the wide receivers steps forward, then it's saying Aaron Rodgers, like, saying, well, you know what? We're just going to check it down all day. Let's just check it down. Why don't we just check it down? Like, does that sound like an Aaron Rodgers thing? No. We're just going to check it down. Here you go, Aaron Jones. Here's 10 targets a game. Like, yeah, I don't think that's happening.
All right. Agreed. All right. So some of these players, let's talk about the ADP risers and some ADP fallers. We'll just kind of hammer through these. You tell me whether or not these rises make sense. These are all guys who've risen over the last week at least like 7 spots. So, I mean, big rises. And when they're big rises like that, 7 spots, generally it's going to be a little bit farther back in these drafts. No one's going to be jumping from 17 to 10 over the course of a week unless there's some major injury to somebody or something. But Darrell Williams has been the biggest riser over the last week. Of course, he goes to Arizona. Where are you on the Arizona backfield? Where are you on Darrell Williams? Is he viable to use like a 5th running back right now?
Yeah, I think he's viable. It depends on how high he gets up. I think his rise is all that he has a landing spot. And we weren't really sold on Eno Benjamin being the clear backup or Keonta Ingram. So I think that the Darrell Williams rise is justified. And depending on where he goes, I'll buy in.
Well, everybody's just looking to put their chips somewhere behind James Conner, right?
Yep.
Because they wanted that offense cheaply, and it's pretty likely that Conner's going to miss a little bit of time. Justin Ross, he's been a big riser. I guess the Chiefs decided they didn't want to draft him, but I guess they decided that they do want to sign him.
I mean, we're talking about offseason hype, Alex. I mean, when you can have a one-handed grab against a cornerback or air, I mean, we have to bump that up, right? Like, I think that's all it comes down to. It's training camp hype. I think we need to remind ourselves also that Justin Ross, as talented as he is, as he did at Clemson, putting up early career production, he's still a UDFA. So it's still a long shot for him to make this roster. So I'm pumping the brakes. Like, I'm not going to buy the climb for Ross.
Is the Nyheim Hines, because Nyheim Hines is on this, he's number 3 on this list. Is it just because Frank Reich told us that we should love him for fantasy? Is it really that easy?
That's it. It's Frank Reich coming out every year. Like, Alex, don't we get this every single year? Frank Reich is handed a microphone and they say, who do you like? And of course, Frank Reich says, man, I really like this guy or this guy or this guy. It happens every year. And like Nyheim Hines is fine. If you're going to go 0 running back, fine. Enjoy that. That's fine. I have no problems with that. But to say that Nyheim Hines is going to sit here and cut into like Jonathan Taylor's workload a ton, things like that, I understand that wide receivers aren't great. But this is all just Frank Reich and the fallout of him saying, I draft him in fantasy. Yeah. And that's it.
Well, okay, so that's coach speak, but what about actually letting the money talk like it is with David Njoku? When the Browns give David Njoku, their very athletic stud tight end, a big extension, a big new deal, and now the word has come out from these cockamamie Cleveland reporters, they've been badgering about. I mean, they're saying that sources close to the team say that they're planning on featuring the guy. To me, this is a rise that I can understand. And are you in on Njoku at all?
I'm going to say this. The rise is understandable, and he's still not high enough. And I'll break that back down. Like, he's still going too late. Yeah. I don't get it, Alex. Like,
well, you can hold out on tight end and just depend on it. You can hold out on tight end and just depend on Njoku being there. Like, when people are taking drags at other spots, it's wild.
He fits all the different things we want to check the boxes for a breakout tight end. There's a path to targets. All he's got to fight with is Amari Cooper, who's never commanded a massive target share. If Watson plays, improvement in quarterback play. This offense could be running faster and pass more, and he's talented. Like, I get the people who've been burned by David Njoku previously. Get over your bias. Get over your butthurt previous redraft feelings. The guy is not going high enough for the upside that he presents. So I'm going to still buy in. I have him ranked right now on Fantasy Pros as a top 10 tight end, and I'm sticking behind that.
Hey, man, I mean, he's much faster than David Bell. Hell,
Yes.
He's faster than a lot of the wide receivers in the league, man. He's a really big, awesome player. Okay, and then so let's go to the players who have now seen the biggest falls. So Keonta Ingram, I mean, for you, he's been the biggest faller. I had a lot of Keonta Ingram. I had a lot of exposure to him. Shit, you probably might have even watched it. I mean, he's from Carthage. You might have even seen him back in high school. I mean, I've been watching him since he was in high school, and certainly through the time he was at Texas. He goes to USC his final year. He's big. He can catch. He was good. If we're putting chips behind James Conner out in Arizona, that's where I was putting him before Darrell Williams got there. Do you still? I mean, I'm certainly not as comfortable doing it now. Where are you with Keonta Ingram and vis-a-vis Darrell Williams and or Eno?
Yeah, so with Keonta, if the thing with Keonta is if you're out here doing best ball drafts, if you haven't gotten exposure, I get exposure now. There's still ranges of outcomes where either Darrell doesn't get the second job. Would I be buying into it heavily right now as I would have been earlier in the offseason? No. But I think that if we're going to see the dip and he's going to go back to free territory and he's at the end, he's like the last pick or the last two picks of your draft on Underdog, that's fine. I'll get some exposure on that, but I'm not going to go overweight, if that makes sense.
What about why is Raheem Mostert falling? Are people reacting late to the Sony Michel stuff? Like, why is Raheem Mostert? Why is he falling right now? It feels like he's been in kind of a bad situation ever since the whole Chase Edmonds, thing happened.
I think it just comes down to Sony Michel signing, and people honestly would just want to stay away from that backfield altogether. I think that people don't really want to buy into Chase Edmonds. They don't really want to buy into Raheem Mostert or Sony Michel. So, yeah, I mean, look, you're drafting 0 RB. You want to get Raheem Mostert to sit here and kind of plug, or you go anchor, that's fine. I think that he's in that type of strategy where he could plug a few weeks for RB2 spot for you, and that's fine. I think Raheem Mostert's still talented. Yes, he's older. Yes, he's not going to probably play a full complement of games, but for where you draft Raheem Mostert, you're not really asking him to do that anyway.
Marlon Mack's falling. I'm not even going to ask you about that. I know you and I have already talked about Dameon Pierce.
Yeah.
How we're into that guy. But what about Tyler Algiere? He was a disappointment at the combine from what a lot of people were hoping. I'm not sure what they were expecting to see based on his film. It wasn't like he ever showed you he was any kind of burner. But
did you see that on his film? Like, I want before we get into his ADP, did you ever see anything on his film that suggested Tyler Algiere was going to be fast?
Well, I thought, yeah.
I didn't. I'm like, you see him caught from behind religiously on his tape. What out of that says, oh, yep, he's going to be a 4.4 guy?
I think that people, I think what a lot, I mean, as far as his acceleration is better than his 40 speed. I think if you look at this 10-yard split, I think it kind of tells the story of that. But I think that's maybe what people liked. And certainly you just like the truck stick. I mean, he's a fun guy to watch. He's a big, physical, fun guy to watch. Very effective too. And it feels like he kind of fills a role there, standing alongside a mobile quarterback in Mariota.
Or if he's dipping, just buy the dip. I mean, he's not going to be crazy expensive. Just buy the dip.
There may be a few weeks wherever he scores multiple touchdowns.
I'm not worried about Jeremy McNichols. Are you, Alex? Come on, are we past that?
Well, but they did. I believe they did. Didn't they bring in Damian Williams? And maybe
Damian Williams is still there.
So maybe that's the reason why that sort of news has come out. But I think Algiere. I had to move him down a little bit on the cheat sheet just because we have to react to ADPs and we always want to be leveraging them correctly. But I think I'm with Derek here. I say, buy the dip with that guy. Again, he is Derek Brown. You can find him on Twitter at @dbro_FFB. A great friend of RosterWatch, an epic hustler, man. Hustle, recognize hustle. Well, I'd recognized Derek a long time ago before he was doing any of this stuff and been following his work for a long time. Now I see him at all the events, Senior Bowl, all this stuff. He's a great, great voice. And he goes out and he actually does the work, which is what I really, really respect the most. So we ask RosterWatch Nation to mobilize, unite. Man, go give our friend Derek Brown a follow on Twitter at @dbro_FFB. All right, two big questions here at the very end. And I sent these to you. Because we need big takes here. Because I need takes that you're positive of this early. Yeah. The takes you're positive. So who's the single player you are positive is going too late in early best ball and redraft leagues? So basically, who are you sure is going to be a steal?
Rashodbateman is being criminally slept on. It's ridiculous. He's going as the wide receiver 28. That's egregious. People do better, be better. Like Marquise Brown was top 12 in target share, top 22 in air yard share last year. And even if you think, and we know that Baltimore is going to be a run heavy offense, you got Mark Andrews there. That's it. And regardless of we hear all this bullshit still about lamarjackson as a running back, he can't throw, all this kind of stuff. Rashodbateman is that dude. He was as a prospect. He had injuries that kind of derailed his rookie season. Baltimore is telling you right now he is going to be right alongside Andrews as the guy. And he is a better prospect than Hollywood Brown could ever have hoped to be. Oh. So I think it's Bateman to the damn moon, baby.
I love it. That's going to be the graphic that goes on this thumbnail.
Love it. Please. Bateman. I need it more for my brand, Alex. I need more Bateman love for my brand. I need it, dude.
All right, now it's time to break out the hate. So the absolute opposite of this, the single player you're positive is going to early in best ball and redraft league. So who are you sure is going to be a bust?
Look, I've been labeled as a hater for this player, and I'm sorry. I just like efficiency out of my players that I draft. I like efficiency. I don't follow narratives. And dear Lord, everything holy and sacred in this world, don't draft Juju Smith-Schuster as a top 24 or top 30 wide receiver. Just don't do it. He's going as wide receiver 27 and 55 overall. Sky Moore is that guy. And regardless if you don't even believe in Sky Moore, Travis Kelce is that guy. Juju Smith-Schuster's efficiency metrics have dropped over the last 4 seasons in sequential order. His yards per route run has gone down every single season. His yards after catch per reception has gone down in every single season. And for everybody that talks about Big Ben, I'm sorry, Deontay Johnson says, hold my beer. I was still awesome. I was still producing at an incredibly high level. I really think that we're putting too much stock, and everybody talks about, okay, but Juju's young, Alex. He's 25. Okay, that's great. And he caught 110 passes. Okay, that's great and all. But if you talk about just the nuts and bolts of wide receiver production, and if I believe okay, this guy is talented, he's going to earn targets, then what were we pointing at for Juju that says he's going to earn targets outside of previous rapport with Ben Roethlisberger? Because the efficiency's not there to say that he's going to do it, man. Am I drinking the crazy sauce here, or are you with me that Juju, the love, is a little bit misplaced here, dude?
Well, I think that it's not just, and it's not just Sky Moore, and it's not just Travis Kelce. It's this stuff with, it's just stuff like, some people are into Justin Ross. There's some people who are still into talking about Mecole Hardman, who's been there a while. There's all of that stuff. But I will say this with Juju is that Juju was good. He was good. But what was that? 5 years ago?
Somewhere around there, and I love the fact that you pointed in there and said was good.